Welcome. Welcome, everyone. It's Angelo Robles. And for those live, I am back live. It's been about 2 weeks. It is a Monday evening at 7:30 Eastern. I hope all is well. I am back from my journeys, my family office forum in Palm Beach. It was incredible. Was there a long time, over multiple days. And even what I'm going to cover tonight, we did varying forms of interviews, debates, and there is something that I've been building up towards. I had a chance on the plane to kind of write it out, and I've been itching to go on this one. You all have been under a rock. I have to admit, look, great marketing and how viral he went. Dr. Jiang, I believe it's pronounced, like he's everywhere, spouting a whole bunch of stuff. He's smart. I enjoy his content, and he's mostly wrong. And tonight, from my perspective, little old country boy that I am from here in the US, I will try to do the best I could. And trust me, this ties into family offices 100%. Other than maybe AI, and they tie together, geopolitics was by far the number one subject on the mind of every billionaire and everyone representing a billionaire in Palm Beach. And without further ado, let's get it done. It'll be a long one, everyone, where Professor Jiang is wrong about Iran, China, AI, power, and really underestimating what's going to be a 5 or 10-year window. Why history alone is no longer enough in an exponential world. It's not just about war, empire, or decline. It's about who turns energy into intelligence first. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correct. He is viral and all over the place and does deserve to have his name pronounced correctly, known as Professor Jiang. I'm going to say something today that most people in this space won't say, not because it isn't true, because they don't want the backlash. There's a man who is growing very fast on social media right now, likes to be called Professor Jiang, Jiang. His channel is called Predictive History, and I do recommend you follow it. It's good. I just happen to disagree with a lot of it. It's good not to get caught in echo chambers. He is building a large and engaged audience, largely, my opinion, by being wrong about the things that matter most. Some of you in the last 2 weeks might have heard him on Ton Bilyeu's podcast, on Tucker, and like they don't give any pushback. Now, I don't think he's wrong about everything. I'll give him that. I'll give him his due. But he's wrong effectively about the core thesis. And I'm going to throw out a challenge later on in my sequilogy here, my YouTube, my podcast. He's wrong about what this moment is actually all about. Wrong about what Iran is about. Before I went to Palm Beach, I did a couple of videos on that. Wrong about what the Gulf broadly is about. Wrong about what China's vulnerability actually is. And almost entirely silent on what I believe is central, the central contest, effectively, between the US and China of our lifetime, the AI race between, again, the US and China. Now, wrong or purposely misdirecting us? For you to decide. And today, I am going to break it down per my perspective. Might be wrong. You decide. I'm also going to do something, as I noted at the end of this video, that I don't do lightly, and I don't know if I've ever done. Not that I'm so incredible, but I am going to challenge Professor Jiang to a direct, public, either digital or in-person debate. Now, he doesn't want a challenge. He's not going to take it up. And admittingly, my platform, it would have been 2 months ago with my lowly 13,000 YouTube followers and only 27,000 LinkedIn. I'm probably too small of a platform, but that's always going to be the excuse. Because I think it's a conversation our audiences deserve. The world deserves the real conversation about power, AI, energy, China, that is, in my opinion, definitely not on Tucker's show. I don't know why. He was great at one time, but I'd like to have it with the professor directly. So I'm going to break this down, have some show notes here into several sections. Yes, I have my trusted water. And everyone, this is going to be a while as a solo. So let's go. Section 1. Who is he and why does this matter? First, let me tell you who Professor Jiang actually is, because I'm going to, again, challenge him publicly. I might as well do it properly. Chinese-born, Canadian citizen, Yale educated, has spent years teaching in China, currently listed at Moonshot Academy in Beijing. His brand, which is exploding on YouTube, Predictive History, is built on a simple and genuinely compelling premise. Sure, use game theory, historical cycles, and big picture thinking to decode, if I could use that word, global chaos. And it's working. He's smart, dynamic, kind of likable in quality. So, hey, and maybe there's other forces at work. Whatever the magic that makes you grow, or the powers that be, whoever they may be in his perspective, kind of put you on the map. His audience is growing fast. His clips are spreading. He's getting booked on, again, the biggest of the big podcast. Now, here's something that I want to acknowledge, because intellectual honesty does, of course, it matters to me. He has, I'll admit, criticized China. He published a piece literally titled, "China's Media Enables Tyranny and Corruption." He was detained and deported by Chinese authorities a long time ago, in 2002. He built his career pushing critical thinking, true, inside a system that suppresses it. I'll say that. So I'm not calling him a CCP spy or a psyop. I don't know. I don't have evidence for any of that. Again, for all of you to make your own decisions. Here's what I will say, and I will say it directly. His framework consistently produces conclusions that are very favorable to China's position. And maybe that's how he actually feels. And from his perspective, everyone is always trying to spin you. He underweights China's fragility. He overweights America's decline. And his content almost never addresses the real levers of Chinese vulnerability. Or, although I admit he's been somewhat critical in the past, he's been a little careful around certain things to keep away from. I'm just saying. Now, whether by design, incentive, or simply the constraints of living and working inside of China, the effect, nonetheless, is still the same. He has built an audience that now believes the story, because stories are so powerful, that he tells. And the story he tells, from my perspective, is incomplete in ways that can matter enormously. So that's what, from my perspective, we're fixing today. And trust me, investors, family offices, really everyone, this world we're in right now, this chaos, this absolutely applies to you 100%. So he's on the right track from the perspective of geopolitical and the topics at hand. It would take hours to go through all of them. So I highlighted and took some rough notes on a couple, and here we go. What the Iran war is actually about. So I'm going to start with that, because this is an issue that Professor Jiang has gotten the most attention on, at least lately, obviously. And this is where I think his framework fails most visibly. Professor Jiang says the war is not really about the nuclear program. On that narrow point, he's kind of right, or at least not the main reason. It's not about nuclear enrichment per se, but his explanation of what it is about is where, in my perspective, as some of my prior videos from about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, is where it kind of falls apart. He frames it as empire, power cycles, the US stumbling into conflict without a strategy. That's absolutely not what it is. Now, let me tell you what it is actually about. Over the last several years, Gulf states, Saudi, the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, have committed approximately 2 trillion, you heard that number correctly, dollars of capital towards the United States, into infrastructure, into our venture capital system, inevitably into energy and AI, broadly into the financial system. And again, you did hear that number correctly. I did state 2 trillion. In the end, war and many things are always about economics, about money, energy, oil, and power. And in this case, that is going to circle back to AI. The money is not a charity. That is an alignment. That is the Gulf states making a geopolitical bet that the United States, not China, not Russia, not a multipolar alternative, is the partner they are building their post-oil future with. And that $2 trillion is not just financial. It's the infrastructure of AI, data centers, power generation, semiconductor supply chains, and again, venture ecosystems. These Gulf states are not dumb money sitting in sovereign wealth funds. They are rational, very smart capital allocators trying to convert effectively hydrocarbon wealth into post-oil relevance. And they have decided that that path runs through Washington and Silicon Valley, not for the most part Beijing. Now, think about what the US is doing in this conflict. It's really not just fighting Iran. It's protecting that investment, that alignment, which is going to be so critical, as we'll weave into, between the only race that matters between the US and China. And every day, every week that we impede them, meaning China, absolutely matters. It's signaling to every Gulf state that made the $2 trillion bet that the United States is serious, capable, and committed. It's very, very important. That is not imperial overreach. That is capital defense. That is protecting the financial and technical architecture, I could say of the next 20 years, but I hinted in my title, a lot of this will be settled for the most part in the next 5 or 10. And that's also where Dr. Jiang's analysis and summary is going to somewhat fall apart. Professor Jiang, I'm sorry. Professor Jiang doesn't put this in his framework, not because he can't, he's clearly smart enough, but because once you put it in the framework, that story looks very different from America blundering into the war. It looks like America defending the network it needs to win the AR race. And these countries, the sovereigns making the investment, us protecting them for the investment that they're making. Now, there's multiple layers here. And of course, it's always complex. But again, comes back to economics, which relate to money, money, money. That's oil and energy. Let me give you that secondary layer. And I promise once I get through some of this, I'll look at the questions and read off comments. And I want active disagreement. It's okay. Unlike others that are afraid of some conflict and debating, I encourage it. China imported 11.1 million barrels per day of crude oil, at least by 2024 estimates. Iran alone will supply roughly 1.4 million barrels a day to China, at least as the numbers per late last year. And I think that's about 13% of China's crude imports. Some of that oil was being routed through Malaysia, relabeled, disguised to evade sanctions. Now, I could bring Venezuela and our tactical, what we did there, meaning the US, but again, I can't quite cover everything, but it all plays out together. So the Strait of Hormuz, the single choke point through which approximately 80% of Gulf oil flows, is where Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait, Qatar, Iraq, Bahrain, and Iran export their energy. All of it destined primarily for Asia. The conflict that began on February 28, 2026 is already, according to the IEA, creating the largest oil supply disruption in modern market history. Hormuz traffic has basically collapsed. Sinopec, one of China's largest state oil companies, has publicly announced it will not buy Iranian oil now. Now, again, every hour, a couple of days, this kind of changes. It's somewhat fluid, but let's go with that. They are seeking access to state reserves and then scrambling to find alternative supply. Let me be very clear about what this means. The conflict is putting direct pressure on China's energy security. This will be a long one, folks. Allow me some water. Sparkling, always preferred. On the industrial inputs, as I noted, that China needs to run its factories on the fuel that powers the Chinese very impressive AI buildout. Whether you agree with the policy or not, the strategic effect is effectively, like, it's undeniable. The United States is protecting, I'll go back and say it again, a $2 trillion Gulf alignment while simultaneously pressuring China's most vulnerable energy arteries. The US, it cost us more money, but we are energy independent. We're going to go over some advantages that we have and China has a little bit later. So this is not a war without strategy. And forget the fact whether you like Trump or not. I could see some of the comments coming in. Stop placating to either your left or your right. Trump has many things that are very unlikable. I completely understand. Put that aside. Think with logic. This is not a war without strategy. This is a multi-dimensional strategic move. And Professor Jiang either can't see it or simply, more likely, won't say it. Now, this segues into what I call my section 3. The AI race is the whole game. And some of you are so far behind on this, it's sad. Now, again, let me get to the real argument, the one that supersedes everything else, the one that, Professor Jiang almost never addresses with the depth that it deserves. There's a Cold War right now, the United States and China, and absolutely in an AI race. It is not a slow generational 50-year transition. If China's thinking of that, of winning, in most past historical contexts, they might be right. But things changed a lot about 3 years ago. So this is now a 5 to 10-year sprint, maybe shorter. Let me explain why. AI is, for the first time, and I spoke about this in Palm Beach, in human history, making, sand effectively into intelligence. Intelligence that is programmable. Cognition is becoming automatable. Decision-making is becoming augmented for sure. Think about what that means for every historical models of power. Every prior model of great power competition assumed that the speed of human cognition was constant. You had more soldiers, more industrial output, or a better navy. But the cognitive layer, the decision-making layer, moves at human speed. Joining me in Palm Beach, 1 hour on stage, he was a guest on my digital platform about a month ago, was Dr. Alexander Wisner-Gross. And these were interesting discussions. I wish you were there, but it was private and for my members. So again, the cognitive layer, the decision-making layer moved at human speed. That assumption is just flat out broken. AI compresses the OODA loops, observe, orient, decide, act in ways that are not linear. That's the key part. Whoever leads an AI dominates military, decision-making, economic productivity. You are so underestimating that. Intelligence gathering and cyber operations all at the same time. Not one domain, all of them at once. And here's the mathematical reality that Jiang's historical models, again, if I'm mispronouncing his name, my bad. A man's name should be pronounced correctly. He could correct me, and I'm happy to do so. In an exponential system, a 6-month lead in something like AI is not incremental, it's compounding. A 6-month AI lead today is not really 6 months. It's a multiplier that compounds with every iteration. Data centers use roughly 415 terawatt hours of electricity globally. I think that was last year, 2025. About 1.5% of global electricity consumption. That consumption is growing at approximately probably 15% annually. In the US alone, electricity demand is on track for the strongest 4-year growth since the year 2000, driven, of course, primarily by AI and more granularly data centers. No, that is not background noise. This is the signature of an arms race in infrastructure. And again, energy is effectively AI. Compute is power. Boy, we got the disagreements coming on strong tonight. Bring it on. The choke points, I guess Dr. Jiang is really popular. The choke points of the 21st century are not just shipping lanes and oil fields. They're power grids, chip fabs, and data centers. And the United States right now is moving faster than any other nation to lock in control of those choke points. It's just a fact. That's what the Gulf alignment, from my perspective, is truly about. That's what the Japan alliance will be about. And that's what the Taiwan relationship, we'll get to some of that. There's lots of things that could go wrong there. That's what the Taiwan relationship is about as well. Jiang talks about the empire, the collapse of the US. I'm talking about the infrastructure layer of intelligence itself. He's looking at the chessboard. I'm looking at who's building the next dimension of the game. We're getting there, folks. I'm going to switch over to section 4. Now, and that is, by the way, what winning AI actually means. Economics, fusion, weapons, and of course, space. You knew that already. Let me tell you what winning the AI race actually means, but not being abstract about it and not philosophical. How about we go concretely? Because I know, most people, including Jiang, talk about AI dominance as it's primarily about who builds the best chatbot, who automates the most jobs, or who has the best recommendation algorithm. That's not exactly what I'm talking about. And trust me, we're going to compare and contrast relatively pretty soon, the US and China. And there are areas where China absolutely has an edge, without a doubt. So, again, what Trump's doing is going to cause some challenges from that perspective, as we are in a Cold War. And this all comes down to AI supremacy. When I say win the AI race, I mean something in total. And this is where many of you, even many of the family offices I meet, just don't quite get it. I mean, economic dominance. This may happen within the next 5 to 10 years. We're not talking decades out. Energy dominance, fusion, and other. Weapons dominance. The capacity, well, here's a big one. The capacity to compress decades of scientific progress into months or years. And as I hinted, I would come back to the ultimate, literally, high ground, space. Let me take you through exactly what this looks like, because this is where Zhang's entire framework and all his game theory and historical cycles, although cute, interesting, I'm happy that he does it. It has some impact on me in my directional decision, but why, for the most part, especially in the near future, it's effectively going to be obsolete. And when that happens, it probably won't be gradual, it'll be rapidly. So think of it as economics, the self compounding civilization. So starting with economics, because this is where, and I hinted when I said with the war, like it all effectively comes down to economics, because this is where the compounding as well really begins. AI doesn't just automate tasks, it accelerates the rate at which productivity, we're onto some important stuff now, where productivity compounds. Think about what that means. Think about it at a bigger level than just you or your company, at the national scale. A country with superior AI runs its financial system just better and faster, allocates capital, which is very important, more efficiently, identifies opportunities that human analysts will often miss, and can detect risk, frauds, instability before it metastasizes. More importantly, a country with superior AI runs its scientific infrastructure just faster. This really isn't too hard to understand. Think drug discovery, material sciences, energy research, agricultural, huge optimization. Every domain that currently runs at human cognitive speed starts running at machine speed. We'll get a little bit into recursive learning and exponential growth and how all this is happening. Again, I told you this would be a grab the cup of hot chocolate, tea, Ovaltine, whatever your drink of choice if you're in the East Coast, as we head into a little bit of the mid to later evening. So back to work here. At machine speed, at exponential systems is not just 10 times faster. It's orders of magnitude faster. What took 50 years of research, imagine a world where AI compresses that 10x more. What took 5 years may bring that down to 5 months or quicker. It's not science fiction. It's kind of already happening. Imagine a year or 2 and 3 from now. AlphaFold solved the protein folding problem that biology has been working on for 50 years in months. Going back to what I said, I appreciate most of you. You're probably all smarter than me. I just put in the time and the focus towards this. You could do it too, but maybe I'm saving you some time. Now, scale that logic across every scientific domain simultaneously. The nation that leads in AI doesn't just have a little better economy, a little edge. It has a faster economy, a self-compounding economy, an economy that pulls further ahead with every iteration cycle. And I just think from an investing, risk mitigation, really every domain and perspective, it really will matter. So this is what winning in economics, gravely underestimated by most of you, looks like in an AI era. And that gap, once it opens, does not close, it widens. And yes, all of this does absolutely relate to oil and energy, US and Iran, China, investments in helping to build our infrastructure with this, with trillions of dollars that I noted. This all comes back. And at the end of the day, it's all about economics and money. What a surprise. Now, once that gap opens, like it's not going to close, it widens. I hinted before at Fusion, the prize I don't think people are talking loudly enough about. Let me tell you about the prize that almost nobody is discussing with clarity. And to me, that's fusion energy. For 70 years, the joke about fusion has been it's 20 years away. And well, of course, will always be. That joke is beginning to die. And here is why I think that AI changes the fusion timeline fundamentally. And these are all things that Professor Jiang either, I don't think he's ignorant to, he's being selective again. In China, you make your own decision. Now, we're going to get to more things that he discusses, and I'm going to state where I have a very different perspective on, but I needed to lay a very strong foundation for this because, again, you're hearing part of the truth on this from him, but I don't think it's the complete picture and it matters. AI changes the fusion timeline fundamentally. Fusion is not an engineering problem that brute force can solve. It's an optimization problem of almost kind of incomprehensible complexity. You're trying to contain plasma at temperatures hotter than the sun. You're managing millions of variables simultaneously. The magnetic fields, the plasma instabilities, the energy inputs, the reactor geometry, all of it interacting. It's so complex in real time. Human researchers running experiments and analyzing results at human speed have been chipping away at this for decades. And now again, our intelligence turned sand, metals, sun, and oil into sand that thinks. Kind of amazing. AI changes the speed of that optimization by orders of magnitude. AI can run simulations that would take human teams years. It could do it in hours. It can identify plasma instability patterns that human researchers can't detect, well, until it's too late. AI can optimize reactor configurations across a parameter space so vast that no human team could explore it in a lifetime. I know I'm getting a little deep here and I'm going pretty hard on the aspect of energy, oil, US and China. But again, these are all things, if you listen to Professor Jiang, you're getting a limited picture on. And we're going to get to more of the social unrest and other things that he brings up as well. But I think this is very important. Companies like Commonwealth Fusion Systems, Helion, Tay Technologies, they are all integrating AI into their developmental pipelines right now. DeepMind has already demonstrated AI systems that can predict and control plasma instabilities in real time inside a tokamak reactor. This is not theoretical. This is active research with AI effectively at the center of it. Now ask yourself, what does fusion energy mean if we get there first? Yes, that's a question. Unlimited, clean, essentially free energy and oil. Energy that primarily we use now runs the economy and the world. Just look at what's playing out in the Middle East. Not cheaper energy, not more efficient energy, fundamentally post scarcity energy completely changes the game on manufacturing, economics, everything. The nation that achieves fusion first, powered by AI accelerated research, does not just win the energy race. Are you kidding me? It wins everything downstream of energy. And there's a lot downstream of energy because everything runs on energy: manufacturing, compute, agriculture, military systems, and the briefly before mentioned space infrastructure. Fusion puts Fusion plus AI equals a civilization operating on a completely different resource space than every other competitor. And the timeline, there's no way it's 50 years away. There's no way it's 20 years away. The serious estimates from serious researchers are now talking about perhaps the 2030s, and some are saying sooner. That's why I go back to, which I think a lot of these traditional economists and others so underestimate, even Ray Dalio and his models. And I enjoy some of this content as well. They're gravely underestimating the unique window over the next 5 or 10 years where AI changes everything and accelerates fusion research into something that lands before most people's planning horizons. And again, Jiang is not discussing this. Almost nobody in geopolitics, I just don't find them discussing it. But this is the prize. This is what is actually at stake. Weapons. The part that is not, well, it's not really optional to understand. I know it makes some of you uncomfortable, but let's talk about weapons. And I know, again, this is not the most comfortable subject for some of you to talk about. I mean, at the moment, I don't care because it simply is reality. And understanding it is effectively what matters. AI dominance in weapons is not primarily about autonomous killer robots. That's, I think, cinematic, a cinematic version. The real version is actually, it's more subtle, in my opinion at least, and more decisive. And I'm going to get into AI wins weapons really in 3 specific ways. And we had former military people at my program in Palm Beach. I wish we actually had more time for some of this discussion, but it was incredible, the interaction with my members and special speakers, attendees, debate partners, and all that. So first is decision speed. I mentioned the OODA loop, observe, orient, decide, act, is the fundamental cycle of military decision making. Every military system at every level is trying to run its OODA loop faster simply than the enemy. AI compresses that loop in ways that are, again, like stop thinking incrementally. I know that's how we grew up and it's kind of how the world was. But again, from my perspective, about 3 years ago, that started to change. An AI augmented command structure can process battlefield data, identify threats, model response options, and recommend action in milliseconds. A human adversary is kind of what? Still watching the radar. That is not a marginal advantage. It's kind of a different category of warfare or the future of warfare. Second, and yeah, we're seeing some challenges here play out in this, autonomous systems at scale. Not one autonomous weapon, swarms, thousands of low-cost autonomous systems, drones, undersea vehicles, uh, electric warfare platforms coordinated by AI in real time. You may not like it, but some of it's already playing out now. And some of it, the US simply has to get better in. Some of the things with Anduril are still in, not production capacity. So there's some work to do here on the US perspective as well. The strategic logic is it's simple, but also brutal. You cannot saturate a swarm. You cannot negotiate with a swarm. You cannot outmaneuver a swarm at human decision speed. The nation that deploys autonomous swarms coordinated by superior AI that does not fight on the same terms as the nation that doesn't, the rules of engagement change completely. Now, I thought about leaving perhaps that session out. I don't think Jiang has really, may not even disagree much from that perspective, but I felt it flowed from how I was feeling and kind of writing it out, and especially since some of this was a part of what we did at my Palm Beach forum. Third, intelligence, surveillance, and targeting. Come on. AI doesn't just kind of pull the trigger faster. AI knows exactly where to aim. AI can process satellite imagery, signals, intelligence, open source data, sensor networks simultaneously at scale and speed. No human intelligence apparatus can match. It's just a biological challenge, I guess, that we have. But again, it's our intelligence and what? Sand, minerals, metals, if you want to call it that, energy from the sun and oil that made all this possible and where we are now. The nation with superior AI intelligence doesn't just react to the enemy, it simply anticipates the enemy. When you combine decision speed, autonomous swarms, and AI-driven intelligence, you're not just building a better army, you're building a fundamentally different category. Understand that, of military power. And the gap between the nation that gets you there first and the nation that doesn't is not a gap, I don't think, that you'll be able to close with more soldiers or simply more missiles. It's a structural asymmetry that compounds with every model generation. This is why the AI race is so important from many perspectives, and it's not optional. For any nation that wants to remain sovereign, that wants to make its own decisions, defend its own territory, protect its own people, I think the AI race is existential. And right now, not by much of a margin, I'd state the US is ahead. Like I said, not indefinitely ahead, definitely not permanently ahead. I don't know, but ahead. And the question is whether it executes fast enough to extend that lead decisively, which relates to where I kind of began, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes ago. Okay, this is a long one, I know, but it's important. And these were the discussions we were having within Palm Beach, and where we're seeing a lot of the thought leaders that are on a lot of your feeds that you're not questioning. Think for yourself, including from the stuff that I say. Think for yourself. Now, space, I do want to come back to this. I mentioned the ultimate high ground, and AI, obviously, is what is going to get you there. Now, let me talk a little bit about that. I want you to understand something critical before I do. Space is not a separate conversation from AI. It is the AI conversation, taken to somewhat its ultimate conclusion. Space is the ultimate high ground, not metaphorically, but literally. Whoever dominates low Earth orbits controls global communications. Whoever dominates cislunar space, the region between the Earth and the moon, controls the strategic approaches effectively to the planet itself. Whoever reaches asteroid belt resources controls material abundance that makes every terrestrial resource constraint irrelevant. It's not that I don't think Zhang is smart and that he's probably also misdirecting many of you, but he's thinking or showing what he's thinking in a framework of how the world was, not how it is, and more importantly, how it will be in 6 months, a year and a half, and 2 years. Here's the connection that almost no one is making with clarity. You cannot win in space without AI. I know I pounded that hard because I need to. And if you win in AI, space becomes accessible in ways it never was before. Now, there's multiple directions I could go here. And actually, the conversation digitally that I had with the Moonshots co-host, Dr. Alexander Wisner-Gross, only about a month ago, go to my at Family Office YouTube and you didn't see it. And that'll be about 70% of kind of the things we discussed in person. But the interaction in person with a audience of 100 was truly incredible. So let me be a little specific about some of my thoughts on this. One, launch optimization. AI is already reducing the cost of access to space by optimizing rocket trajectory, fuel consumption, and reusability in real time. SpaceX Falcon 9 landing algorithms that are AI driven. This is why the cost per kilogram to orbit has dropped by an order of magnitude, in 15 years? One order of magnitude in 15 years. Also, how about on-orbit operations? And everyone, this is important. Like, these are important things. Some of you may find it a little boring, like you have kids, like you want to have a career, like in the next even 5 or 10 years. These are all very important things to know. And what this even goes to the future of work and the future of humanity. So on-orbit operations, space is an environment where human reaction time is just too slow. Communication delays are long, and variables could often be too complex for manual control. AI-driven autonomous systems are not a nice to have for space operations. I mean, come on. It's effectively a hard requirement. So space-based intelligence. A constellation of AI-coordinated satellites, imaging, signals, radar, communications, creates a global intelligence layer that no ground-based system, none, can replicate or counter. The nation that controls that layer effectively sees everything all the time, everywhere. And China is making a lot of progress in space. Now, what I'm talking about is already happening. The United States Space Force is not simply a punchline either. It's the recognition that space is an active, I hate to put it so just bluntly, but just being honest, war-fighting domain. And that dominance in space translates directly, or will, into dominance on Earth. Now, there's a deeper argument, one that goes past military strategy into, civilizational stakes. The long-term resource constraint on AI is energy and materials. Training frontier AI models requires we briefly discussed this, and powered by energy and oil, enormous amounts of electricity. Running frontier AI at scale requires, again, massive amounts of electricity. And electricity requires, again, fuel or solar or nuclear, all of which have terrestrial limits, as far as we understand them, at least to this day. Space can remove those limits. Solar-powered satellites, massive arrays in geostationary orbit, beaming energy to Earth. as microwave radiation can theoretically provide a continuous, weather independent, location independent energy at scales that dwarf any terrestrial source. Are we there yet? No. Is AI making us head exponentially in that direction? Of course. Asteroid mining, even a single, I think you're underestimating this one actually. Listen, even a single mid-sized metallic asteroid contains more iron, nickel, cobalt, and platinum, a group of metals than probably all of human civilization has ever extracted from Earth. Ever. The nation that combines AI-driven space operations with space-based energy and resource extraction is not competing in the same game. Come on. Like, they're making up the game. That's not the same game as everyone else. Like, they would have left that game. It's playing on a resource space that is truly, truly effectively unlimited. Now, Professor Jiang talks about great power cycles. He talks about historical empires. He talks about the rise and fall of civilizations. But every historical empire he references was constrained by terrestrial resources. Every historical cycle he models was bounded by what effectively could be extracted from the earth. The nation that wins, and this will not take decades to play out, the nation that wins AI and uses that AI to unlock space resources has broken the constraint that previous empires, without them, I guess, really knowing, eventually all hit. So it's not a civilizational cycle. It's a civilizational discontinuity, sure. And his models, just by definition, they just can't see that. Now, there is an important part of this, and I don't want to make it an overly techie AI conversation, but it plays into it. The recursive loop, why this all happens faster than anyone thinks. And Alex Wisner Gross, both in my digital platform and in person, did an amazing, amazing job on this. I am not doing any justice here, but I'm not Alex. Let me bring kind of the four layers together: economics, fusion, weapons, and space. The reason I keep hammering, and I admit I am, that 5 to 10 year timeline it's not rhetoric. It really effectively is structural. Each of these domains is being accelerated by AI simultaneously. They are not accelerating independently. They're accelerating each other. I don't know if I phrased that exactly how I wanted to, but I think you get the big picture of what I mean. Better AI accelerates economic productivity. How about that? Simple. Economic productivity funds more compute. More compute produces better AI. I mean, that's relatively pretty straightforward. Better AI accelerates the fusion research, produces cheap, abundant energy. Cheap energy powers more compute produces better AI. Like, that's just, I guess, the recursive, and we could get into self-learning and all that loop. Better AI, whether we like it or not, produces superior weapon systems. Superior weapon systems secure the energy and space infrastructure. Secured infrastructure enables more compute build out. I could already tell you the US government and military completely understands this. And there's some very smart people in the administration. I get it. Take your personal feelings aside. Realize the reality of how the world works and why it's changing. Take your emotions out of it. Better AI enables Back a little bit to cheaper space operations. Cheaper space operations unlock space-based energy and resources, taking it exponentially to even an other level. Space-based resources power effectively, well, of course, unlimited compute. And unlimited compute, well, back to it again, produces better AI. Do you see now what this is? I mean, come on. Who else in the family office world is talking about this? Oh, there's many others with far greater capability than me. They elect to be ignorant or fearful to it, or not put in the time to understand it, think about it, write about it, and output, I hope, content, whether you agree with it or not, that causes you to think. This is the recursive loop across every domain of human power simultaneously. And recursive loops do not move at historical speed, they simply accelerate. The nation that gets into this loop first and stays in it does not just win a generation, it potentially wins the remaining of this century, like maybe longer. Oh, we could get into what could go wrong in space, etc. And maybe the subject for a little bit of a different time. I don't have a crystal ball. I have no idea. And the window to establish that position where Jiang and others think, oh, 20, 30, 40 years, no, it's not 2050. I don't think it's 2040. The foundation is being like laid out right now. The energy contracts, the chip fabs, the data centers, the space launch cadence, the fusion research pipelines, the alliance structures, all of it is converging. Like, can you see this right now in, I think, a 5 to 10-year window that will determine the shape of everything that follows? And the US in limiting China's access to oil, aka energy, impacting the economy. It, again, there's multiple points. We can have that discussion here, even if it gives a couple of months edge. That does add up, compounds, and matters. Jiang is telling you to look at history to understand the future. And in the past, prior to a couple of years ago, that may have worked. I'm telling you, the future that's coming, it's never existed before. No historical model contains it. No game theory cycle, in my opinion, can predict it, because history never had programmable intelligence. History never had the prospect of fusion energy within a decade. We'll see. History never had autonomous weapons operating below human reaction time. History never had spacefaring civilization with AI resource driven extraction. All of those things are converging right now. And obviously, over the next 5 to 10 years. And the United States, yeah, it's messy, we're chaotic, a bit loud, and we are politically fractured. Jiang is not incorrect about some of the things that he states, but it still is better positioned to win this convergence right now. And with some of the moves being made, this is a very AI-friendly administration. You don't want to know my opinion of what would have happened if Kamala Harris would have won and all the constraints on AI. China would have blown us out of the water within 3 to 5 years. Again, I don't care whether you like Trump or not. There is a fair amount not to like, some of it personal. I get it. This is just business. Still better positioned to win this convergence right now, the US than any other nation. Now, geography, our unique geography plays into it, capital, rule of law, innovation, architecture, Silicon Valley, etc., because of the alliance of the network, what I call the network, and because the sheer velocity of its private sector when it smells an opportunity at this scale. Now, moving on, I guess we'll label this Section 5, China's real vulnerabilities. Let me talk about China directly. Because here is where Professor Jiang's asymmetry becomes, to me, kind of a serious problem. Now, he will criticize, and has, the Chinese education system. He has criticized bureaucracy. He'll say innovation is constrained by centralization. Sounds like things that we kind of agree on. What he will not do with any real force is talk about China's structural vulnerabilities. So why not? I guess I will. China has a demographic collapse happening in real time. The population is flat out shrinking. The workforce is aging. The dependency ratio is worsening day by day. Now, Japan went through this. It was devastating. China's on a similar trajectory, but at a larger scale and with less wealth per capita to absorb the shock. Now, fusion, AI, robotics can change some of the dynamics here, and some of it's going to be a little bit of who wins first. But back a little bit to the core issues. Youth unemployment in China has been severe enough that the government stopped releasing data like for a certain time frame. Like let that sink in. They stopped publishing the numbers because effectively, being honest, the numbers were effectively too embarrassing. How about the real estate crisis there? Evergrande, Country Garden, the entire property sector kind of wiped out the primary savings vehicle for maybe hundreds of millions of Chinese households. So this is not simply a contained financial problem. Sometimes it comes down to a confidence problem, a wealth destruction event, and a structural trust collapse. I mean, I'm not the only one. Kyle Bass and others, Gordon Chen, etc., have spoken about some of these challenges. How about capital flight? Wealthy Chinese citizens and entrepreneurs have been moving out of China if they could at scale. This is not the behavior of a population confident in their system. Do you think more people are trying to get out or trying to get in? And coming back to almost where I began, energy dependence. China imports approximately 11 million barrels of crude oil per day. They are more exposed simply to Gulf instability than almost any other nation on earth. And the Strait of Hormuz is not it's not an abstract concern for Beijing. It's an existential infrastructure vulnerability. And right now, that vulnerability is under, literally as I'm talking, under direct pressure. But Professor Jiang does not foreground any of this. His China analysis is almost entirely about capability and trajectory. His US analysis is like effectively exclusively about weakness and about decline. That asymmetry is not analysis. I think it's more of a narrative choice. And I believe his audience deserves to hear the other half, I guess you could say, of the ledger. Now, that brings us into what I would call Section 6 and the U.S. advantage stack. And trust me, I hinted at some a couple of minutes ago. There are absolutely problems too. Let me make the affirmative case. This is not just about Professor Jiang. It's about building a better model where power actually sits. So one, within here, the United States, geography. It's one of the most geographically advantaged superpowers, really. Think about it and think about our geography. In the history of civilization, two oceans, don't laugh at my next comment, friendly neighbors, no existential land border threat, partially thanks to Trump being stricter on our borders, rightfully so. China has Russia kind of what on one border, India on another, contested maritime frontiers, and Taiwan is kind of a persistent flashpoint. So, yeah, geography is not destiny, sure, but it is infrastructure. And on that infrastructure, the US starts from a position of extraordinary, truly extraordinary structural security. How about, and I get it, it seems to have gotten weaker over the last 5 or 10 years, but dollar dominance, the world doesn't just trade with the US. It mostly, and it's getting a little weaker every year or two, I get it, settles through it. Global reserve currency, energy for the most part, priced in dollars, sanctions power, whether you think that's unfair or not, capital attraction at scale. Jiang gestures at dollar decline. And yes, for sure, there are challenges and pressures, but the network effects of the dollar system are among the most durable structural advantages in the history of financial architecture. Displacing the dollar is not simply, well, it's a 10-year project. Like it may not even be a 50-year project. And what did I say about that far out? The world as we know it is changing in the next 5 to 10 years. Now also, and kind of boring, but US, I think, kind of rule of law. It's the foundation of everything else, personal freedoms. The United States, back to rule of law, has enforceable contracts, transparent courts, don't laugh too much, investor protections that make capital feel safe at the highest levels. And again, that goes back to what I said earlier. One of the reasons why the sovereigns in the Gulf states are putting trillions of dollars to work here and not in Beijing, because capital needs stability and rule of law. And China, as of yet, cannot, in my perspective, credibly offer that at the level global capital requires. You know, I heard Jiang, and I do enjoy listening to him, and I do learn, and there are some things that we do agree with. Frustrated a little bit by Tucker Carlson and Tom Bilyeu, like they was just so nice, like they're smart guys, like they know some of the things I'm talking about, I'd like to hope. And like, why aren't they pressuring him more? I don't get it. How about here in the US, staying on that track, energy independence, oil, gas, LNG, growing nuclear, kind of, expanding renewable capacity. The United States does not depend on foreign energy the way that China does, but China's making massive inroads in solar and nuclear. I do get that. As AI scales, as data centers consume more and more electricity, the United States has the domestic energy architecture potentially to power that build out, and China does not, but they're making massive inroads very quickly in solar and nuclear. But if a lot of this is going to be decided in 5 or 10 years, that may end up being a little too late. Energy, again, has become intelligence, and the United States has both. Now, also, how about the innovation engine? Silicon Valley, venture capital, startup velocity, deep capital markets, global talent attraction, OpenAI, Anthropic, Google DeepMind, NVIDIA, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of these exist in the US because of the legal, financial, and cultural infrastructure that the United States provides. China, for sure, has industrial scale. The United States has the frontier innovation architecture. And in a technology race where frontier capability compounds that it's not just simply a marginal advantage. It's a decisive advantage. And I could state, like, how about the alliance network? Now, this is an important structural advantage that I think that Zhang consistently underweights. China has kind of one node. The United States is kind of a network. I'm thinking of Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Australia, broadly NATO. Yeah, we could go a little back and forth on that one. The Philippines, not just military reach, semiconductor supply chains, advanced manufacturing, capital flows, energy coordination, intelligence sharing across dozens of aligned nations. Has that been somewhat fractured with some of them, mainly in NATO in the last year? Yes. Have there been some mistakes made by the current administration? Oh, of course. Like, I'm not ignorant to that. But these are still powerful alliances. So Professor Jiang analyzes kind of a two-player game, but the real board really is closer to like 8 major players. And the United States, I'm not going to say all, but leads most of them with them. This is not a marginal advantage. Again, it's the structural asymmetry of kind of the first order. We're heading a little bit to the home stretch. For those of you that are staying with us live, kudos to you. Some of you may break this up, and some of you may have given up a long time ago. Japan, I did want to come back to this. The blind spot that opposes Professor Zhang's like real entire framework. Let me spend some real time on Japan, because the way that Professor Jiang, like a lot of Chinese people, treat Japan, or more precisely, the way he doesn't treat Japan, tells you everything you need to know about the limits of his framework. He almost never goes deep on Japan. In his Asia analysis, it's almost always US versus China, bilateral, head to head, as if Japan simply doesn't register as somewhat of a strategic variable. Now, I would like to take this moment to be blunt. Never underestimate Japan. Japan is still hanging on to the 3rd largest economy in the world. It leads in advanced manufacturing. It's excellent in robotics, precision engineering. And Japan is structurally embedded in the semiconductor supply chain in ways that I think a lot of you could be underestimating, that cannot easily be replaced. I also think they absolutely have a very warrior samurai mindset. That has not changed in the last 60, 70, 80 years. Japan is a tough country. They've had their challenges. They're hanging in, and I think they're going to adapt, and they're a great friend of the United States. Without Japanese equipment, chip fabrication kind of breaks. Without Japanese materials, advanced manufacturing slows. Without Japanese industrial precision, the AI buildout, well, it will kind of stall. The AI supply chain, like, what does it look like? Well, sure, the IP here in the US, Taiwan provides the chips. Japan provides the tools and materials to kind of make those chips. I said the United States provides the design and capital and effectively, broadly, the software stack. Yeah, I simplified that probably a little too much, but directionally it's on the right track. You cannot build the future of AI without Japan. Full stop. And Japan, as I noted or hinted at, is not just some passive actor. Japan is increasing its military spending, normalizing its military posture, taking active steps towards a more independent and capable security role. Allow me a sip of my sparkling Pellegrino, please. And the cultural point, I'm going to go back to that. It matters. So I guess I will make it. History has shown when Japan decides to move, it moves with precision and intensity. Japan has deep, deep national identity, resilience, long institutional memory, and a disciplined industrial coordination. That's the word I'm looking for. And I think that Professor Jiang treats Japan as somewhat of a demographic afterthought, aging, slow, grouped in the same bucket as a declining Europe. That, to me, is a mistake. Japan is not Europe. Japan is a critical node in the most important supply chain in the world right now, and one that I think he gravely, gravely underestimates. And by not seeing that, by framing Asia as purely bilateral contests, the professor reveals exactly the weakness that I kind of been, and maybe a little subtle about it in some ways, but describing in my video. He's looking and intellectually sure at the 20th century map. The 21st century map has Japan right at the center of technology infrastructure. My God, I guess I should go and visit Japan. They should love me there. Apparently, I'm a roaring supporter, which I am. Okay, section 8. His real problem, he's just modeled, as I kind of said throughout. Now I'm going to hit you with it. Jiang is modeled just simply a slower world. Let me get to, that's my deepest critique. It really isn't as much even political, ideological, structural. Jiang's framework was built for a world where transitions, they took 25 to 50 years. Cycles were more predictable, where the speed of human cognition is constant. And all of that has changed. That world, I mean, rather bluntly, it's over. It's just over. We are inside an exponential acceleration. AI models are improving not every year, but by iteration over iteration, like in weeks, radically. The changes I saw in February were shocking. Like, imagine the new ones coming out probably weeks from now. Amazing. Autonomous agents, AI systems that perform complex human cognitive tasks, but without human direction, are emerging now and getting good. The recursive loop that I hinted at and gave some context to earlier has started. Better models accelerate research, faster research produces better models. The loop, that loop is effectively already running. And this is where I part ways with Professor Jiang, and honestly, frankly, with Ray Dalio too. I'm not saying they're not brilliant. Their analytical work, and Ray's been an incredible investor for decades. But both built their frameworks for a world without programmable intelligence. The impact that I hinted, that what's going to have from an economic perspective is going to be so grand and impactful within a relatively short 5 to 10 year time horizon. History has never had programmable intelligence. So using history alone to predict the future is fundamentally flawed at this specific moment in time. I really believe the window is 5 to 10 years. It might actually be shorter. The decisions being made right now about energy, about compute, about capital, about alliances. They'll just keep on compounding. I think I said earlier, a 6-month lead in AI is not really a 6-month lead in the way that you think about it. It's a multiplier that grows, as I stated, with every model generation. The biggest mistake, all of you, an employer, an employee, an entrepreneur, a family officer, investor, the biggest mistake you can make right now is thinking that you or we have time. We don't. You need to understand this like right now. This is the time. What's the second biggest mistake? It's using pre-AI historical frameworks to navigate a post-AI reality and world. And I think, I don't have a crystal ball. Things could go wrong. I think that is exactly what Professor Jiang is doing. Okay, as they say, I guess let's begin to land the plane. And I guess I'll call this a direct challenge that I hinted at earlier. I'd like to kind of say this. Why don't I go directly to the professor, Professor Jiang? I've watched your content. I've studied your framework. I read your background. Absolutely. You're smart, articulate, you're damn good at what you do. And your explanations are probably not as long-winded as mine. That's a good thing. There's much I could learn. But I think you're wrong in much of what you say and doing effectively a disservice. That doesn't mean, from my perspective, that you're wrong about everything. From my perspective, you're not. But because your framework is asymmetric in ways that matter enormously, your critique of American fragility with force and precision, you critique China's structural weakness. Sorry, I'm getting a little tired after like an hour and a half, everyone. You critique China's structural weakness, demographic collapse, sure, capital flight, energy dependence, the real estate crisis, youth unemployment data that they stopped publishing with none of that same energy. Why? Why? That you give the critique of the US. You get on podcast, honestly, with smart people that I do respect, but like, why are they not giving you any pushback? You have conversations where the implicit assumption is that the American decline is real and China's rise, though you do hint at some challenges, is inevitable. And the only question is how that transition unfolds. And the hosts, they let you run with it. I love Tom Bilyeu as much as the next guy. He really understands entrepreneurship, business, and economics. He doesn't push back on his guest. He just doesn't. So you're compelling. You're good theater. You're probably going to draw views. I get it. And good for you. That's very impressive. Like your framework to those more ignorant probably sound complete, but it's not. It's not complete. You are not discussing, like I stated, as you should, the $2 trillion of investment in the Gulf here in the US and why they're putting it here. You're not discussing the recursive loop between AI, fusion, weapons, and space that compresses your 50-year timelines possibly into 5. You're not discussing what it means that China is one node, kind of, and the US is a network. You're not discussing, at least properly, as I hinted at just a little while ago, Japan. You're not discussing what it means that I did a lot on to win AI, not just in productivity, but that would be huge, but in energy, weapons, space, and civilizational level resource access. Now, you're correct. The US is bifurcated politically, culturally, losing a little bit of the commonality and morality I would use we have grave challenges here. There is more of a unifying culture in Japan. There's a massive edge in manufacturing and even in nuclear, solar, and robotics. I do not deny that for a second. We have a lot of work to do here in the US, and I'm not sure we're going to do it if we're up to it and we're going to win. You are not incorrect about those things, but you position and you misdirect in things that you say to be misleading for people that don't do the homework. So here's my challenge. Professor Jiang, come have this conversation with me directly, not on a friendly show where people don't challenge you, not with a host who's just simply gonna, or a host that's gonna simply nod along. Bring your game theory, bring your historical cycles, bring your best arguments about American decline and Chinese ascendancy, and let me show you in real time why the layer you're missing changes the empire picture. Now, I shared some of my insights and my ammunition with you now, but I also held some back. I have other things I have to say as well, but I probably made this long enough as it is. I know you gravitate towards shows with large followings. You got to be effective with your time. I understand. And hosts that don't challenge you makes it easier for you. So let me make this simple. I mean, I'll come to you. You want to do it digital? You want to do some other format? Neutral ground, any format, 1 hour, 2 hours? I could do 3 hours too. I've done multiple 3-hour interviews. Don't know if I've ever done a 3-hour debate. Whatever it takes. You could even dictate some of those terms. Let's have a real conversation because our audience, yours and mine, and a larger audience that is maybe willing to be familiar with these sort of active debates deserves more than one framework, including more than just my framework. They deserve the debate. And if you won't have it, that tells the audience, I think, something too. Let me close with a frame that I want you. What is this moment actually about? And again, I go to some of the things I mentioned earlier. It's not about, of course, Trump freeing the people of Iran, changing the system there. It's baloney. Of course, it's not that. And even the nuclear program, we could debate that. It's not primarily about empire and power cycles. It's not primarily about American decline. It's about one thing that this all comes back to that I've been saying about. It all comes down to money, economics, power. Who wins the AI race between the US and China? That's kind of it. If I really had to simplify it, every major move happening now, the Gulf alignment, the Hormuz pressure, the Japanese or the Japan relationship, the semiconductor restrictions, the data center build out, the fusion research pipelines, the space launch cadence is a move, a strategic move in that race. I mean, how could I make it any more simple than that? And yeah, the United States is protecting $2 trillion of investments in this country, in RVC, in our AI, in our infrastructure to win effectively that race. And absolutely that money, as always, of course it matters. The United States is pressuring China's most critical energy arteries at the exact moment China needs stable oil supply to power its own rather impressive AI buildout. The United States is leading a network of allied nations that collectively hold the semiconductor supply chain that makes these frontier AIs possible. Everyone among these billionaires and family offices, like these are the deep, intense conversations that are happening. And yes, this is why you should go to angelorobles.com and learn more. And if you want to be a part of a special group that gets an edge with incredible thought leaders and peers, to be a part of my private membership community. Again, we talk about this. The nation that wins the AI race does not just win a geopolitical contest. It wins the economic compounding engine, number one. It wins the fusion energy research race. It wins the weapons, asymmetrical weaponry, bioweapons, God forbid. These are all, it wins low Earth orbit. It wins cislunar space, all things I mentioned earlier. It wins access to resources, abundance that breaks every terrestrial constraint, every empire always hit. China is absolutely not weak. I want to be very clear about that. They have real advantages: industrial scale, manufacturing capacity, more of a unifying culture and morality, effectively centralized coordination, and long-term strategic patience, although I think that is not as valuable over the next 5 or 10 years. We'll see. And again, I mentioned China's operating under, to me, one node, what I call that: demographic pressure, energy dependence, capital flight, and internal fragility more than what we hear, playing a bilateral game on a board that is becoming multilateral and multidimensional faster than its centralized system can adapt. The United States is a network, like I said, imperfect, chaotic, loud, but adaptive, capital deep, alliance rich, energy dependent, and sitting at the center of the technological supply chain that makes this all possible. So no, it's not a decline. It's a setup for dominance that history simply has no prior example of. One second. I mean, is there a warning? It's not guaranteed, but the window, I mean, it's real and it is finite. The decisions being made in the next 5 or 10 years about energy, compute, alliances, space, and fusion will compound in one direction or the other. I mean, I don't know if I could make that any more direct and simple. The United States has a big job ahead of it. It may not be able to do it. To win, it's going to have to execute. And frameworks, to some of you, like Professor Jiang's, can be seductive. They can be compelling. They are absolutely incomplete. That tell people the outcome is like almost already written. That decline is structural and inevitable. That history's arc bends away from American power. Those frameworks, to me, are not just wrong. I believe they're dangerous because they discourage the urgency, which I think is what they want. The urgency that this very moment is demanding. Again, the future is not, 2050. It's being decided right now. The next 5 to 10 years. From the energy, the data centers being built, the energy contracts even being signed today, the fusion labs running, the satellite constellations being deployed. All of these things are exponential and converging at the same time. And the capital being allocated right now to this. It's so important. And the alliances being strengthened, or some would say being broken today. So no, Professor Jiang, never underestimate the US. Got to stand up for Japan as well. Never underestimate Japan. I better get some members from Japan. I hope they like what they're hearing. And never assume that because things look chaotic, and they do, and they are to some level, but that they're broken. America's strength is probably not necessarily neatness. It is adaptability. It is the decentralized, messy, relentless capacity to reconfigure. I hope we still have that in us. You could say that we don't, but to reconfigure under pressure and emerge effectively better and faster. And right now, under enormous pressure, the US is building the energy, compute, fusion, space, and capital architecture of the intelligence age. I think that's very, very important for many of you to understand. The winners of this race will not be the ones who best understood the past. That might have worked, like I stated in the past. That does not work in today's world. It will be the ones who move the fastest. And you, audience, you have to move faster on this and be decisive into the future. And effectively, that really is the game. And that is what is absolutely at stake. So everyone, I'm Angelo Robles. I am at Family Office, primarily on YouTube. I'm active on LinkedIn. You could go to angelorobles.com and learn more. And you missed Palm Beach of this year, and Miami too, but I'm going to be in Puerto Rico next, hosting programs, LA, New York multiple times, Vienna, Cayman Islands, and back to Florida before the year ends. And a lot of my unique proprietary content for members only and connectivity. And we tackle the tough subjects: geopolitics, macroeconomics, investing, AI, and much deeper than that within the framework of why it matters for the rich and family offices. And I'm always down for a good debate. Again, I do respect Professor Jiang, his intelligence, what he talks about. I think it's purposely a very incomplete picture. And again, you're going on shows where you're never challenged. Even by these big names and smart people, they make it easy for you. I won't. Do you accept that challenge? I'm going to take a final little look. Boys, you got a big audience tonight. Thank you. How many of you have been with me since I started? Wow, over an hour and 35 minutes ago. Some of you have some great comments here. There's a lot of comments. Okay, well, some of you are pretty comical. I could have used some of this comedy a little bit earlier on. Yeah, especially earlier on. I did not exactly, I guess a lot of you love Professor Jiang. What are you, bots? Genuine. You think that he does not have an agenda? Everyone has an agenda. I guess I do as well. You don't think there's some level of government behind him, of powers that be? Come on, you got to wake up to how the world really works. Doesn't mean he's not a good guy. Doesn't mean he's not smart. He is, and things that I can learn from, of course. I do get caught in echo chambers. You're correct. And he doesn't. We all don't. Come on. We're all human. I mean, a lot of you, I don't know, bots or not Americans or Canadians, you love Professor Jiang. Like, you think he's right. Though it's over for the US, the China won, not me. I'm going to grab my cowboy hat, have my ranch in Wyoming, and I'm believing in America and that we could do this. From a cultural and morality perspective, the edges we have now, and I'm telling you, I'm 100% right about the US and Iran and the war there. I'm 100%. And some of you are being a little anti-Semitic, of course, like everything is blamed on Israel. Like it's all their fault. It's as simple as that. Nonsense. Completely do not buy into that. That will probably get me more hate, by the way. Yeah, I mean, that's a good comment. You're right. Professor Jiang should be willing to go on podcasts or debates where people are going to challenge him. I think you're basically stating some of my points were pretty good, thank you, but I'm probably not a big enough platform for him. You're probably correct. But like, who is going to be someone that could go toe-to-toe for over an hour, for 2 hours, 3 hours? I'm not saying that I would win. Many of you apparently would think that he would. But I am just not seeing a zero in the family office world, but even broadly from a geopolitical perspective. But that I thought was a good comment. Uh, Boy, some of you are on a roll here. Yeah, like that's exactly it. Like never challenged. I'm telling you, I had very tough challenges at my program in Palm Beach by two people on stage. I don't know if they want their name mentioned. They more than held their own. They might have whipped my butt for the audience to decide. But I like that. Hopefully, iron sharpens iron. I don't get caught in an echo chamber and I could learn. But I get it. You know, some of it appears to be a prevailing comments that, sure, Angelo, you bring up interesting points. You're right. He never gets challenged. You're just too small of a platform where he's not going to go on your show. Well, you know what? 2 or 3 months ago, he was not that much of a platform either. So we shall see. Maybe he's up to the challenge. Bring it on. Everyone, it's well after 9 o'clock. I'm still recovering from my long amount of time in Palm Beach and what I had to do there. Hey, that's all on me. I got to get it done, right? No excuses. It's a very busy week for me. Some travel into New York and other locations and meetings, programs, all that good stuff. Thank you all. I hope you enjoyed it. Professor Jiang, come on, bring it on. Reach out to me on X, on LinkedIn. Well, probably not LinkedIn, YouTube. Email me at angelo@angelorobles.com. Any way you want, bring on the challenge. Thank you all, everyone, and have a great evening.